It's April 1st here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with President Yoon Suk-yeol's national address on medical reform. Yoon is set to address the nation on the government's push for medical reform, including the addition of 2,000 medical school seats. And starting Monday, medical professors will shorten their working hours over fatigue caused by the trainee doctors' walkout. Tens of thousands of Israelis took to the streets in protest against Benjamin Netanyahu's government, demanding a ceasefire deal that would free hostages held by Hamas. Netanyahu dismissed calls for an early election. Workers can now enjoy the benefits of faster commute times from metropolitan regions to Seoul with the partial opening of the Great Train Express, or GTX-A line here in South Korea. President Yoon Suk-yeol will make an address to the Korean public on Monday as the backlash from doctors' group against increasing the number of medical students continues to compromise hospital services for the 7th week. The top office said the South Korean leader will make a detailed explanation to aid public understanding on the government's push to reform the medical sector and explain the annual quota of students admitted to medical schools by 2,000. The policy has been vehemently opposed by thousands of junior doctors who have staged a walkout since late February, compromising medical services nationwide. The Yoon administration has been pushing to overhaul the current medical delivery system, which currently lacks sufficient doctors in essential and emergency care, particularly in already underserved regions outside of Seoul. And due to the mass walkout by the trainee doctors, medical school professors filling the gaps left by the walkout have declared they will cut back their working hours starting today. Our Choi Soo-hyung has the latest.
Medical schools professors in general hospitals are reducing outpatient services and surgeries as of Monday. Because of the en masse walkout by trainee doctors 7 weeks ago, the medical professors keeping the hospitals running are suffering from increasing fatigue. Professors from 20 schools among 14 nationwide stated last Saturday that 1 day off will be mandatory after working continuously for 24 hours. They added that outpatient services and surgeries for the treatment of severe and emergency patients will be scheduled based on this rule. The Korean Medical Association, the biggest doctors group in the country, also announced doctors who run a private clinic will shorten their working hours to 40 hours per week. Meanwhile, 51% of the professors from the Big Five medical schools in Seoul have not yet submitted their resignations or disclosed their intentions. The Big Five hospitals refer to Seoul National University, Ulsan University, Yonsei University, Seongkyungwan University, and Catholic University. At Seoul National University, 32%, around 450 out of its 1,400 professors have submitted or plan to submit their resignation letters. At Yonsei University, 48% have submitted the letters, and at Catholic University, about 48% have said they intend to resign. The professors who have submitted their resignations are continuing to work alongside patients until their resignations are processed. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
The U.S. is working on another trilateral summit with South Korea and Japan, this time in Washington, D.C. in July. That's according to a report by Kyodo News. What's the reason for these talks, and what is likely top the agenda? We turn to Professor Brian Myers for more. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Professor Myers, why is the U.S. arranging three-way talks once again? Why another one?
Well, as with so many things in international relations, multiple factors are probably at work here. For one thing, Joe Biden is up for re-election, so the more opportunities he can have to look statesmanlike, the better. But the Americans, I think, are eager to get the South Korean and Japanese leaders together as often as possible because they want the South Korean public to get used to this de facto trilateral alliance so that it continues even if there is a change of power here in 2027. And just last year, of course, NATO identified China as a big security threat. So it makes strategic sense for NATO to work more closely with its friends in Northeast Asia. So I think all of these factors combined to make another summit look like a good idea.
Right, that's why the news was no surprise. And what topics are likely to top the agenda this time?
Well, the relevant statements that have been issuing from diplomatic sources have not been very specific. As you'd expect, they talk about bolstering deterrence vis-a-vis China and North Korea, improving cooperation, coordinating information sharing with NATO, and so on. But my hunch is that there's going to be a lot of discussion of economic and trade matters because, as you know, the Americans want to restrict China's access to advanced semiconductor chips and technology, and the Chinese have retaliated with export controls of their own. So the US, Japan, and South Korea want to build supply chains that are, so to speak, China-proof. And I think this makes some people here in South Korea nervous because they've seen the German economy suffer hugely as a result of Germany aligning itself a bit too closely with the United States against Russia. So this is a very tricky business for South Korea, which is worried about North Korea, worried about its security, but it also wants to stay on good terms with Beijing.
Right, and speaking of North Korea, it seems like talks between North Korea and Japan regarding a possible summit between the two have been ongoing, although without success yet. Do you think the Trilateral summit between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo will make the North move away from a Kim Jong-un-Kishida summit? What do you think?
Well, I don't think the NATO summit in Washington will necessarily preclude a Kim-Kishida summit, but I think it will certainly make it more difficult for the North Koreans to agree to send back to Japan the citizens that they abducted. You know, North Korea wants its people to believe that it is feared and respected around the world, but especially in Japan. So to make that sort of a concession at a time when Kishida is strengthening military cooperation with the United States would be very difficult for Kim Jong-un, I think. He's a dictator and a monarch, yes, but he still needs to think about public opinion, as all dictators do. Now, I don't rule out a summit between North Korean and Japanese leaders, but I think it's likely to happen after the September election in Japan.
Definitely. Now, let's talk about what happened over the weekend over in the north, across the borders. A North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, he inspected a construction site at the regime's ruling power training school. Now, why did the North State media report on this? I mean, why is his visit there important or even noteworthy?
Well, the North Korean media report on Kim's every appearance, no matter where he goes. But perhaps this one can be seen in the context of the regime's effort to present itself to the outside world as a functioning party state, as opposed to the family-owned, really monarchical dictatorship that it is. And I think Kim Jong-un may be reviving the old hype about Juche thought, which is allegedly being taught at this school, because Juche, when you read it, is a very benign humanist doctrine for export that sounds much nicer than North Korea's real ideology, which is radical nationalism. Now, Kim claims to have abandoned the goal of unification, so he may be reviving the old Juche hype to make that claim look more plausible. But again, I'm not sure there was special significance in this visit. This kind of public appearance is pretty much personality cult business as usual.
Right. And there were also satellite imagery released over the weekend taken by Planet Labs. There were groups of people spotted at the Medium Parade training ground over in Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea. Does this hint there may be a military parade in the near future? I mean, what might that be for?
That's a good question. You know, here in South Korea, most holidays have either traditional or nationalist significance. But North Korea has several big Republican holidays strewn throughout the year. So a military parade could indeed be in the works. Now, of course, like us, the North Koreans ascribe more importance to round anniversaries. So that's what puzzles me a bit, because I don't see any big ones in the offing. You know, it's the 112th anniversary of Kim Il-sung's birth this month, along with the 91st birthday of the Revolutionary Army. So nothing really seems to merit an especially big parade. I think it could be a parade planned perhaps for the 30th anniversary of Kim Il-sung's death. You know, he died in July 8th, 1994, so that would be 30 years. That would make sense. But, you know, this is a military first state, And military progress, ballistic progress, is virtually the only kind of progress that the regime can boast about. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if it decides to hold a parade on a relatively unimportant anniversary just to give the public a spectacle to cheer about.
That's an interesting analysis. All right, Professor Myers, thank you so much, as always, for your insight. You have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.
Over in Israel, calls for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to resign are intensifying, with around 100,000 Israelis protesting against their leader in Jerusalem on Sunday. Lee Seung-jae has more.
Weekend protests against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his government grew even more on Sunday, with the Times of Israel reporting that around 100,000 Israelis rallied in front of the parliament. Protesters expressed their anger at the government for its prolonged war in Gaza without being able to eradicate Hamas or bring back the hostages taken by the militant group. The protesters also expressed anger towards the government's support of exempting ultra-Orthodox Jewish youth from military service. Others criticized the fact that the Prime Minister's son has not been in the country since the start of the Gaza conflict.
So what I'm doing here is trying to change the government, because this government is a complete and utter failure, and the only way they will lead us into the abyss that we will never come out of.
Protesters called for an early general election to remove Netanyahu from office. However, the Israeli Prime Minister argued, saying that if a general election were held now during the war, hostage negotiations with the government would be paralyzed for 6 to 8 months. Opposition leader and former Prime Minister Yair Lapid said that an early general election would not paralyze the government, arguing that Israel has already been paralyzed due to the ongoing war with Hamas and the lack of hostage negotiations. Sunday's massive gathering followed protests involving tens of thousands of Israelis from cities across the country on Saturday, leaving Netanyahu to grapple with one of the most serious threats yet to his coalition. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The Great Train Express began partial operation over the weekend, and it's now available for workers to commute from the Greater Seoul region to Seoul in under 30 minutes. And over 20,000 people are expected to enjoy the convenience of the GTX every day. Our Park Bonu reports.
Partial operation of Line A of the Great Train Express, or GTX, began on March 30th. According to the Transport Ministry, almost 19,000 people used the service, which runs between Seoul and the greater metropolitan area, on the first day, despite it being the weekend. That was around 2,000 people more than the ministry had projected.
I think the GTX will allow people from far places to commute more conveniently, and I think I can also consider a job flipping to other regions as well.
It was difficult to ride the bus with my child, but now with this train, I think I will be visiting Seoul more often.
Since the GTX-A line is now in operation from Suseok Southern Seoul to Dongtan in Gyeonggi-do Province, I'm going to check how long it actually takes from the moment I pass through the turnstile until I reach Dongtan. It took around 5 minutes to travel the 40 meters underground by escalator to the platform. Then it was just 20 minutes to Dongtan, a journey that would have taken around an hour by car or bus. With the train running at an average speed of around 110 kilometers per hour and up to a top speed of 180 kilometers per hour, the GTX is 2 to 3 times faster than a normal subway. As you can see, it took 30 minutes for me to get from Suseok to Dongtan Station. Trains usually run at 20-minute intervals, but that gap shortens to 17 minutes during peak hours, which is usually longer than normal subways, so checking train schedules is advised.
I wish the interval between trains becomes shorter at peak times.
The government said it would try to run more trains after the other parts of the A line are connected in order to reduce intervals. Some people also raised concerns about safety issues when riding the GTX.
I am a bit worried about accidents, as this is a high-speed train.
The Transport Ministry said the government will work on ways to address issues raised by citizens, with the Transport Minister also saying more employees will be deployed at each station to alleviate worries. He added he'll do his best so that other GTX lines, including the other part of the A line, will swiftly begin operation. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
President Yoon highlighted the need for love and solidarity as he attended an annual joint Easter service of Korean churches on Sunday. In his address, Yoon said the country is facing serious challenges and crises, both internally and externally, which makes it timely for contemplate the meaning of resurrection. He said that Jesus Christ showed infinite love to liberate humanity from sin through the cross and resurrection, adding that the practice of love and solidarity to bring freedom for all is the way to achieve the true meaning of resurrection. He said together with the government, he would take a humbler stance to seek out and listen to the smallest of voices among the public. He also pledged to offer care and strength to those going through hardships to help them get back on their feet. San Diego Padres infielder Kim Ha-seong hit his first home run of the season, launching a 3-run shot in the second inning of Sunday's game against the San Francisco Giants. The Padres got off to a huge start in their 4th game of the opening series, scoring 5 runs in the first inning and 4 more in the second, including the long ball by Kim. His first home run of the season came just a day after the newly signed Lee Jung-hoo of the Giants hit his first home run on Saturday. Kim and Lee were teammates at the KBO's Kium Heroes. Lee signed a 6-year, $113 million contract with the Giants during the offseason. San Diego won the game 13-4. The time to say goodbye to FuBao, the giant panda living in Korea's Everland amusement park, is approaching, as she is set to move to China this Wednesday. Now, ahead of FuBao's second chapter in her life, our cultural correspondent Song Yu-jin delved into what's behind Korea's FuBao fever.
After 3 years and 8 months in Korea, FuBao, the beloved giant panda, will soon start a new chapter in China. The 3-year-old celebrity panda, the first offspring of Aibao and Lebao, is leaving her hometown Everland, Korea's largest theme park, on April 3rd. All cubs of pandas unleashed from China must return upon reaching sexual maturity, typically around 4 years old. FuBao's departure sparked a wave of emotion among her fans who flocked to say goodbye during her final days in public view. Some even waited for up to 7 hours. That's because FuBao has been at the center of Korea's panda fever.
Everland's YouTube channel, which uploads videos of FuBao, saw a surge of 450,000 new subscribers last year. Following the release of FuBao merchandise, the theme park recorded an operating profit of 66 billion won in 2023. I think a sensation is because FuBao is the first giant panda to be born in Korea.
Her bond with zookeepers, often called her grandpas, also played a big role.
FuBao's connection with the zookeepers is what resonated with people and made them like her even more.
Fans say her biggest charm is her personality.
FuBao is great at expressing her emotions. When she's angry, she might roll around. And when she's happy, she flashes this really joyful smile. So I sometimes wonder if there's a person inside her.
I think what I like to call FuBao's pure attitude towards life, such as her perseverance to eat bamboo or climb up a tree, somehow encourages and comforts people.
With FuBao's departure, there will be 4 giant pandas left in Korea, parents Aibao, Lebao, and their twins Ruibao and Huibao. Everland is still packed with visitors waiting 1 to 2 hours just to catch a glimpse of the remaining 4 Bao family members. Those who are unable to bid farewell to FuBao in person can do so by looking at photos and writing messages. FuBao translates to a gift that brings happiness. For the past 3 years, she's brought great joy to Korea. Now, Korea wishes her a lifetime full of happiness. Song Yu-jin, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Kim Si-young, and now we turn over to stories from around the world. Türkiye's main opposition party, the Republican People's Party, declared victory on Sunday in municipal elections in the main cities of Ankara and Istanbul. According to preliminary results, Istanbul's incumbent mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu, led by nearly 10 percentage points, delivering a heavy blow to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's AK party. Turkish broadcaster NTV reported on Sunday that the Republican People's Party, or CHP, had nearly 51% of the votes, with around 92% of the ballots counted in Istanbul, Turkiye's largest city. In the capital, Ankara, CHP candidate Mayor Mansur Yavaş led with 59%, with 85% of the votes counted. The secular CHP was also on the course to win in multiple major cities, including Adana, Antalya, Bursa and Izmir. State-run Anadolu Agency reported a voter turnout of around 76% from the 61 million people who are eligible to cast ballots for all metropolitan municipalities, district mayorships and neighborhood administrations. Moving over to Japan, where the country's health authorities searched 2 factories operated by Kobayashi Pharmaceutical over the weekend after the company reported 5 deaths potentially related to dietary supplements they produced. Officials from the Ministry of Health, Labour and Welfare, as well as the city of Osaka, officials conducted the inspection after 5 people died and 114 were hospitalized as of Friday after taking the company's supplements. Kobayashi says toxic puberulic acid might have been produced by blue mold penicillium in beni koji, or red yeast rice material used in their products. The supplements were marketed as helping to lower cholesterol levels. Kazumasa Kobayashi, the company's CEO, apologized at a news conference on Friday and said it was investigating the health hazard related to their supplements. Now to Indonesia and a massive fire that broke out on Saturday at a military munitions depot in Bogor City near the country's capital. Officials said the fire had been extinguished in the early hours of Sunday morning and that the military was conducting a search mission in the area to collect any materials that might have flown out during the explosions. The Indonesian military said that while investigations are underway, unstable chemicals in aging ammunition stored at the facility may have caused the fire. No casualties were reported. Christians around the world marked Easter Sunday, believed to be the day Jesus was risen from the dead. At the Vatican's Easter event, Pope Francis greeted crowds in St. Peter's Square and was driven down the river Tiber. The Vatican said some 60,000 people showed up. In the Belgian city of Antwerp, thousands of residents gathered in the Bogerhout district on Sunday to share a meal on a 2-kilometer-long table, an evening event which combined the celebrations of Christian Easter and Muslim Iftar. The dinner hosted up to 7,000 people, breaking the record for the longest community dinner table in Belgium.
Good morning. What a pleasant start to April. Morning commuters would have noticed much brighter springtime sunshine this morning compared to last week, and temperatures will also prove it. However, big gaps in readings of more than 15 degrees Celsius will be seen in many places today. A dry advisory is in place for east of Gangwon-do, so fire safety is a must, but air quality will be decent nationwide all day today. So it's picture-perfect weather for most places. Have your sunglasses and a hat on when stepping outside. It will be quite sunny all day in most parts of the country. Seoul sees a high of 18 degrees, Daegu at 22 degrees, Gwangju topping out at 23. Make the most of today's bright skies. We have rain in the forecast from Jeju tomorrow, spreading nationwide by Wednesday. And just a heads up, rain, which is forecast for 3 days this week on the south coast and Jeju, could knock cherry blossoms off. Meanwhile, temperatures stay on the warmer side this week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Tuesday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.
Welcome. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, mix sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니?
Arrow straight through my heart.
We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's April 1st here in Seoul. I'm Yoon, and you're watching News Generation. Joining me in the studio is Chiji.
Happy April.
Happy April. And Jessica Daina.
Happy April, everyone.
Happy April.
We made it.
We made it. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. The music we're hearing these days has much simpler and more repetitive words than the top tunes of past decades. That's according to a study published in Scientific Reports last Thursday that has compiled and compared lyrics from over 350,000 well-known songs released between the years 1970 and 2020. Researchers in the study said they observed this type of trend of more rhyming lines and a simple chorus across 5 of the most popular English-language music genres, which are pop, rock, rap, R&B, and country. They analyzed this trend to have come from people having more music choices than before, which is why people prefer to listen to something easier to process and more straightforward. Moving on, from today, if you're a couple in Korea and trying to have kids, you can receive financial subsidies from the government. Specifically, the subsidies are for your fertility test, or if you're a female, an anti-Mullerian hormone test or AMH test that checks the amount of eggs you have. Regardless of income or whether you're legally married or not, all couples can enjoy the health ministry's latest package aimed at boosting the lowest birth rate in the world. Women will be subsidized by around $96, while men around $37. This policy will kick off in all regions, but in Seoul, the capital already has a separate similar support program. And next week, the 22nd general election is set to kick off in Korea. Police said they detained a YouTuber in his 40s last Thursday for allegedly installing spy cameras at polling stations in 2 cities. The man is suspected of breaking into 5 early voting polling stations in the Namdong and Gyeong districts of Incheon City. During the investigation, the YouTuber reportedly told the police that he wanted to monitor whether the National Election Commission was actually manipulating turnout rates for early voting. Police are currently looking into whether this man has installed any more cameras at other polling stations. And the Ministry of Interior and Safety has also checked for any spy cams or signs of mischief at all early voting stations across the country, and they've discovered spy cameras at 18 facilities managed by local governments so far. And this is one of the most sensitive times of the political calendar. Officials have been ramping up measures for a smooth election, both offline and online. On the internet, they've been tracking down any fake news or AI-generated deepfakes that might sabotage candidates' campaigning. Now, expanding on the news story, I would like to ask how you guys are doing in order to better prepare yourselves to vote for the elections.
You know, as you said, this time is one of the most sensitive and most important time of the year, obviously in a democratic country. So I'm actually quite saddened and surprised by the fact that technology is being used to not facilitate, but uproot and upstage a fair and equal election. And I do hope that they take all necessary measures to sort of, get rid of and, break down any sort of measures that are actually upstaging a fair and equal election, because our votes are very, very important for all that matters. As for practicing my own safe election protocol, I think one of the things that I've been doing for a long time is not sharing my political views with my families or friends when it comes closer to the election time. While it is important to hear from other people, I think it's very easy to fall into groupthink when it comes to something as, very sensitive as politics. So I think one of the things is, keeping the research to myself and making sure that I research each and every candidate, quite meticulously, and also not sharing my voting results afterwards.
So that you know that you won't be swayed and you really choose based on your own research and your own decision.
Exactly.
What about you, G? What do you do?
Well, I'm trying to look into the various pledges and policies proposed by the candidates in order to better prepare for the upcoming elections. And for me, it's important that I vote for someone whose ideas align with my values and interests. And I'm sure many others think the same. And also, I plan on watching the debate among the candidates this week to ensure that I'm making an informed decision.
Exactly. Having a lot of information and access to what the political candidates are trying to offer, I think, is the key. Now, we're going to switch gears to our main discussion topic. Last week in our news feed, I reported on how more people are sticking to their original OTT subscriptions because of live streaming services on sports matches. Watching sports both online and offline has been booming. And what's worth noting, though, is that we're seeing a surge in the number of female viewers. So, Chi, why don't we first walk on this trend?
Right, that's right. So the number of women watching sports, particularly millennials and Gen Z, is on the rise, and this trend is changing the overall vibe of sports stadiums. Now, it's become a new hobby for many women to go see live games of their favorite sports. First, let's take a look at the screen to put this into perspective. Now, data indicates that more than 50% of ticket buyers for the national football team matches were female, and that's last year. And this surpassed the number of male ticket buyers. So as you see through this data, you can really realize that a lot more women are being more involved in these actual sports games, whereas in the past, it was more of the males who are more interested in these sort of sports games.
As well, right. Now, Cheska, would you like to elaborate on this growing trend of seeing more female sports fans out there?
Absolutely. And to add on to the statistics that Jihi brought up, you know, I think this trend was shown very much across baseball, basketball, and surprisingly, esports, which was something that was, as we discussed before the show, something that was very sort of revolutionary for me, because even my younger brother, he plays video games, but almost 64% of people were females who bought the ticket to watch the League of Legends. Now, another thing that I found very interesting was the KBL, the Korea Basketball League, had an all-star round in January, and almost 70% of attendees were females in their 20s and 30s, screaming and chanting as if they're seeing their favorite K-pop star in the court. And I actually read the article, and there were interviews about, you know, why do so many females attend these sports games? One was easier access to getting tickets. I actually logged onto the KBL and saw the ticket prices, and obviously it's a lot more affordable than getting like a K-pop concert ticket, and less competitive. And the other thing is, I'm sure if you've been to these courts, you can actually see, scream, and interact with the players in the court and the ground. So I think that gets people really excited as well.
So it's definitely a new cultural arena for you to have an immersive experience with your favorite sports celebrity. Now, I would like to ask, as much as we're seeing this type of trend, did you guys ever go to a sports match yourself, like a live one, or have you or any of your friends been to one?
Well, yeah, I've been to volleyball games, baseball games, and in fact, the K-League matches also began last month, which I want to go see one day soon. And the baseball season has also begun. Matches are held every week. And I've been to, like I said, baseball and volleyball games, as well as a live golf game too. And I'm also planning on going to see the World Cup qualifying soccer match between Korea and China, which will be held at home ground in June. Yes, and speaking of World Cup, I have this little towel.
Look at it, it's from 2002.
It's from 2002. And so we usually have one of these items, go watch in the live stadiums, which I will do soon. And I'm sure you two will love to join me as well.
I'm going to join you for sure.
So much fun.
Yeah, well, I love hearing all the cheers once I'm there, enjoying beer and snacks, and being immersed in the moment of the game. And many of my girlfriends also enjoy the experience. In fact, one of them is a huge soccer fan, and she's going over to the UK to watch one of the matches of the Premier League, one between Tottenham and Wolverhampton.
Wow.
And also another friend of mine, she's also female, went to Qatar to watch the national football team play in the Asian Cups.
Wow, so you and your friends are definitely partaking on this new trend of seeing more female sports fans at stadiums. What about you, Cheska?
You know, speaking of sports fans, I would like to bring a little bit to the basketball league now. As some of you may know, in America, the NCAA, the National Collegiate is huge. So when you're in college, having a sports league or sports game is like a very big thing. And now, I mean, it's April now, but it's actually in America, it's called March Madness.
It is.
Literally people going mad over the basketball season of all the colleges nationally. And having come from one of the craziest colleges that promotes basketball, we were chanting, body painting, you know, foot rolling. The stadium was literally called Cameron Crazy for a reason.
Right.
And I think this is one of the ways that people really do celebrate sports in the States. But also my sister and my mom, and we like to do a girls' tradition where we go to US Open and watch the tennis game. That is also a big thing. So I think I would love to join a soccer game as well, but these were some of the sports that I tried out.
And you mentioned a really good point there. I think it's not only confined to Korea as to seeing a lot of women sports fans go to live matches. We're seeing this globally, but to find out better and which countries and which sports are really trending and booming, we asked our viewers to share their opinion. So if you take a look at the screen, you can find out what 3 of our viewers had to say about seeing more female viewers at sports matches in their home countries. Sunny says, in the States, even though baseball and basketball have been one of the most popular sports from the past, nowadays we can see more female fans visiting the stadium and enjoying the game. I think it's because of fun events in between the innings and quarters. Benny said, for me, the Philippines are super fans at basketball and also volleyball. An absolute reason why I notice most fans love to watch women's volleyball leagues from abroad and here. User said, in Australia, female fans are increasing, especially in tennis games, as many celebrities are coming more and more to watch the game. Also, popularity of tennis players itself is getting bigger, so fans are coming to see them in real life. And you can see that it is a booming trend of seeing more women at sports matches. But let's bring our focus back to Korea. One thing to note when we talk about who and how we watch sports events is our unique cheer culture. So why don't we touch upon that?
Yes, absolutely. And before, when I mentioned that there was an increase of female participants as fans, you know, cheering and chanting, there was actually an article that said maybe the idol, like the K-pop fan culture, is coming into the stadium as well. So as you know, we're very known for daechang, which is a synchronized chanting and cheering. So when you go to these stadiums, you see people chanting together, you know, moving in a synchronized motion. And if you have, Jihi, if you have gone to these stadiums, you would know that people line up just to get a glimpse of their favorite players. And actually, the Major League came to Korea last week for their world tour, and so many of the players and the directors actually said, quote, they were in awe of the lit energy that the Korean cheering crowd had. I mean, we have, as you can see, one of the best cheerleading squads, the music playing, I mean, the food, I mean, everything was, you know, top notch. And one of the things was that it was so great that the New York Times article actually published 2 weeks ago an article titled, quote, how to be a baseball fan in Korea, get ready to scream.
Get ready to scream. I mean, that is an integral part of our cheer culture.
Yeah. Right.
Gee, would you like to add on?
Sure. So just like Cheska said, I believe that Korean cheering is really characterized by a sense of unity, evident also in the dreams come true slogan we used to have back in 2002, and the various chants and the daechang, like you said, singing along together. And apart from the cheering culture, eating is also a huge part of the sports watching culture. I mean, there's even a barbecue zone in Korean baseball stadiums where you can actually grill your own meat.
Serious?
Yes, while watching the game. And many also order various delivery foods, like chicken, of course, to enjoy while cheering for their favorite teams.
So there's so many ways to enjoy the cheer culture. And I think one of the biggest parts is in Korea, we do it well. There's so many options. You can not only eat, you can cheer, you can sing along. It's such an immersive experience. And to better find out how a surgeon woman at sports stadiums and live matches is affecting Korea's cheer culture and broadly the sports industry as a whole, we're going to connect to a sportscaster, so stay tuned for our live interview. We're now going to include a sportscaster in our talks to better read into the latest trends. It's Jason Lee living in Gimpo. Welcome, Jason.
Hello, good morning.
All right, Jason, we'd like to ask, why do you think we're seeing more female sports fans flock to stadiums to watch various sports matches here in the country these days?
I think there's a few reasons. Namely, I would say that Korean women are becoming more and more independent than they have been in the past in terms of becoming professionals, earning their income, their own income, and therefore having money to spend to go to the stadiums or the arenas to support their favorite teams. I think also being able to be a part of a community, you know, with SMS these days, it feels better to be able to go to a game and not just sort of be with the person that you went, but be with the group that you went with. And I think that has a larger appeal for women as well. And then, of course, ticket prices, especially in Korean sports, are very affordable. So being able to spend as little as $5, $10 to go to a game is very reasonable for anyone to go to.
I see. Well, then compared to the average male sports fans, what are some distinctive traits found among women sports fans? And is there a difference in the way they consume merchandise or express their affection and support for their favorite teams?
I think there is. I think when you think of a male sports fan, you think about a guy who maybe played some sports as a kid, maybe looks at the athlete playing on the field and thinks to himself, oh, I wish I was that person. Oh, I could have been that person if I'd just been a little bit more talented. And you kind of think of yourself as living the life vicariously through that athlete out there. Now, I think for females, let's put it this way. I think you could fantasize as a female being someone that could have a relationship with that person out there. You know, you see the athlete as a different commodity compared to the male who wishes he was that person, as opposed to maybe females, you know, just hoping and cheering for that person no matter what.
And do you think in line of that, having more female viewers in the sports stadium perhaps or perchance change the culture of the cheering or maybe even the atmosphere at these stadiums?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, more women usually leads to more passionate cheering by all means. So you have fans that typically will stay right to the end of the games. You know, I think in North American sports culture, you get a lot of fans that leave maybe 3/4 through the game if the home team isn't doing well. But in Korea, they stay right to the end. The cheering is much more passionate. You know, like Koreans love to chant cheer at games. So being involved, knowing the chants for every athlete, for the team, things like that, I think that's more prevalent with the growing number of female fans compared to if it's just, like I said, the guys that go just to watch the sport and strictly the sport compared to really being there to want to cheer as good as they possibly can.
It's like as if they're cheering for their favorite K-pop celebrity, but it's just a sports celebrity now. They're really thinking about what they want to do for them, showing their support through these really massive chants. Now, thank you so much, Jason. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
Pleasure as well.
All right, and we're going to end off with ways we can better enjoy sports games at stadiums or hype up our already bright cheer culture. So any ideas you guys would like to share?
Well, first of all, I really like how the stadiums are becoming a lot more gender balanced now. And I really like the atmosphere. It really seems like a festival once you're there. And I'm really excited to be talking about this topic today because soon we'll be going to watch one of these games live. And watching sports can be more enjoyable personally when you support a favorite team other than the national team, and also sometimes placing bets with your friends, friendly bets. For example, I used to make bets with my friends on the outcome of a match. So you would guess what the score would be between this country and that country, or this team and that team. And the losers would have to buy beer or the snacks that you're enjoying together. Yeah, it adds to the fun of the whole experience.
It really does add to the fun. And I would like to focus on what you said before, the gender balance that we're seeing. I do think sports is now a really good bridge between genders. And I'm going to go a little deep here for a second. But here in Korea, we are thought to be stereotypically very gender enclaved. We have a lot of differences between gender. There's a lot of conflicts there still. But hopefully this can work as a commodity to really mend any type of conflicts here, because it could be a common area of discussion.
Absolutely.
Now, what do you think? How can we better enjoy this trend and jump onto it?
Right, and just to add on to that very quickly, I think having a gender balanced sort of environment environment also makes people like myself feel very safe to go to these stadiums. True. I mean, I've got to be honest, back in the days, I felt very unsafe going to some of the soccer games because there were a lot of hooligans and very violent, screaming and cursing, at the stadium, and I did not feel safe just being there. But having a lot of females around me and also other people enjoying and actually coming together to enjoy the sports itself really makes it safe, I think, more harmonious. On top of that, since we're talking about, more females going to watch these sports, I think one of the great ways that we can support more gender-based is going to more female sports. That's so true. I mean, we have really been struggled a lot to make our way into the sports industry. So showing more sports in the female sports areas would also add to the balance as well.
Might as well, because we're already seeing more female sports plans flock. Now let's just expand that category to female-oriented sports. Now, in the meantime, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Chiji. Thank you. And Cheska Dainong.
Pleasure's always mine. Thank you.
All right, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.